All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Culper's Canteen Cup, episode 72. Give a big shout out to Carlton Zeus out there. Thanks for letting us use your music. Check him out at Apple Music or www.carltonzeus.com. Josh, I think this is the first episode, if I'm not mistaken, that Luke has not been with us. He's running around Texas. I don't know if he's just violating the rights of Americans or if he's in the middle of cash payouts to illegals, but we got a lot of hot stuff in the news right now. So we wanted to hop on here for a few minutes. And it seems like with our lag time between when we record and finally get it out, some of our episodes don't age very well with our predictions. So, we'll go right off the bat, man. Let's start off with the Kyle Rittenhouse case. So as of right now, as of this recording, which is Wednesday, 17 November, the jury is broke, right? So they're back there deliberating. Trying to decide if he's guilty or innocent. So let me kick it over to you. Let me get your initial thoughts, and we'll go from there.
Ooh, man, there's a lot to say on that case. Anybody who watched the trial, and so they were in the courtroom about 2 weeks. Monday through Friday, and they called a bunch of the prosecution obviously started off as they always do. And I love your Free Tibet shirt. We'll get to China here in a few minutes. So he had, from the very beginning, I think a lot of people, they had already decided whether, Kenosha Kyle was guilty or innocent based on kind of whichever political side they sat on. But after seeing the evidence, laid forth, and like we've said, I don't know, ad nauseum on this show, is wait until the evidence comes out. Just wait until all the evidence comes out, because the media is going to show you what they want you to see. You're not going to see all the evidence, until it gets into court, and then, it comes out. So just wait until the evidence comes out. And within the first couple of days, it was very, very obvious that this kid acted in pure self-defense. You had the prosecution star witness, Gage Grosskreutz, who that was the guy who he got his right bicep blown off. He stated on the stand under oath that Kyle Rittenhouse did not shoot him until Gage Grosskreutz pointed his own weapon at him, a weapon which he was not allowed to have, a weapon which he was not allowed to legally carry there in Kenosha after he traveled 51 miles, away. And because everybody's making a big deal about, Kyle Rittenhouse traveling, 21 miles, to Kenosha. But this guy traveled from 51 miles away, had a gun he wasn't allowed to carry, and pointed it at somebody. And this guy has not been charged with anything, other than being, disarmed by Kyle Rittenhouse, pun intended. And then you had the prosecution team, which kind of looks like, Bert and Ernie a little bit. They turned around and who is it? Binkin, that his name? Asked Kyle Rittenhouse why he didn't say anything after he was arrested by the police, which, I mean, it absolutely blew my mind that he would even ask that question. Why didn't you say anything? Why did you stay silent? That is literally a constitutional right. You're a prosecutor. You have a law degree. I'm not sure where you got your law degree from, but anybody who, anybody who has watched, Cops, anybody who has watched, shit, man, did you watch Chips? It's like Ponch and John, dude. Like, Miranda v. Arizona would like a word with you. There's a reason why you don't have to say anything when you are arrested and read your Miranda rights. And then, and of course the judge kicked the jury out of the courtroom, and the judge absolutely lost his mind on the prosecution, on why they would even ask that. And then the rest of the evidence, and then so today it kind of it really blew up because the defense came in. They filed their motion on Monday to just to have dismiss it with a mistrial with prejudice because of this drone video footage that apparently, and I'm still trying to process it all, and it was hard to follow a little bit. But on Friday, after the jury had already, evidence is closed, the prosecution, the testimonies have closed. They haven't given closing arguments yet. They turned around and they're watching this drone video, and Lunchbox, the fat prosecutor, literally says our video is better than this one, and it was the defense's video that they were showing, and the defense is like, "I'm sorry, what?" So the prosecution has had HD quality video that they did not disclose to the defense. They did not provide that to the defense. I mean, I was only an investigator for 22 years, and having sat through a number of investigation courses, last time I checked, there's this thing called disclosure, to where you have to disclose all the evidence you have to the defense team, and so you have that. Now you have video evidence that was not disclosed to the defense team. They got a video, but yet it was not the same quality, and better yet, and this is where I was just like, I was listening to this, and I think you were too, where I was just like, this is not happening. Like, this can't be happening. With the ADA, the fat kid, Lunchbox, is talking about how, well, I texted that to you. We keep it in Dropbox. Okay, one, why are you keeping evidence in Dropbox? Or no, I'm sorry, correction. That they said that was the only piece of evidence that did not go through Dropbox. So they are using Dropbox for evidence, right? We're just keeping evidence in the cloud on the interwebs. And I get it. People are like, well, it's password protected. Be like, okay, well, yeah. The 16-year-old kid who lives in the basement down the street from me with a certified ethical hacker degree, he would like to work with you too. So he's talking about, he's like, well, I have an Apple, and, I have an iPhone, and, you have an Android. So it's not my fault that it didn't go, that it came through weird, or it didn't come through as, such, blah, blah. Dude, there's different names for the file. The file came through, it was originally 11 megs. It came through as 4 megs, which obviously, distorts the quality of the file for the defense. The prosecution never told them at any point in time, hey, by the way, this thing is 11 megs. If it's not, 11 megabytes when you get it, if it's not HD quality when you get it, let us know, because that's what we have. At no point did they do any of this. And dude, that's just a little bit of it. How they have not declared a mistrial in this thing is beyond me. And if this is what we're going to allow now, to constitute as evidence, and we're going to allow this to be the new legal standard in the United States, well, then you're never ever going to have a fair trial ever again. You have, even the protesters, why they didn't cordon off the courthouse, they can hear people inside the protesting from inside the building. The jurors can hear that. Do you think that intimidates the jurors at all? Knowing there's a bunch of people out there like, I'm going to dox you if you acquit this kid, and I'm going to burn your house down. Like, this thing it's not a prosecution; it's a persecution. That's all this is. So I'll stop rambling right there, but that's just kind of some initial thoughts, because I was thinking about it on the way home, and I was like, what a complete circus this has turned out to be.
It's very disheartening. Like, don't get me wrong, we have a lot of things messed up with our judicial system, and the legal system, our courts, law enforcement, government as a whole. But generally, I believe that our court system was fair. For the most part. You always have outliers, right? I mean, there's always going to be a certain percentage. It doesn't matter what it is, left or right, that, is going to be, crooked or corrupt or whatever. But going along with what you said, I mean, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, one, you have, which you brought up, the questioning of, why did you invoke your Fifth Amendment right? And then, they follow up with that with like, well, why did you get a lawyer? Like, why did you feel the need for a lawyer? It's like, what? Like, what? Now, and this is not the defense, okay? Because you have to remember, the defense, they're civilians. This is the government. This is the ADA, right? So again, the judge freaks out. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. He's like, hey, these are kind of like constitutional rights. Like, this is not the place to question anybody's constitutional rights. So that was just to kick off the case. And then when you look at the video, there's a huge difference. Like when I saw the comparison between what they received and the high def version, oh, dude, it's night and day. Now, you can make the argument one way or another whether it was a pertinent piece of of evidence, this and that, whatever. That's not the point. The point is the defense is supposed to have everything that the prosecution has. And what kills me with this thing is and this is where I become disheartened. The prosecution, okay, the government should be fighting for justice. Okay, now whether you think Kyle Rittenhouse was right, wrong, indifferent, whatever, the government, our legal system should be fighting for justice. The ADA is fighting to win, and there's a big difference there. Okay, and it's easy to conflate the two, but winning doesn't necessarily mean that you've achieved justice. And when I saw some of the stuff that the prosecution went through, I mean, like, why wouldn't you open everything? If I'm the prosecutor, and we've both been investigators for years, so if, as the prosecutor, I would, hoping that this thing doesn't, go to a mistrial or get thrown out as a mistrial or whatever. I would want to ensure that, hey, this is what we have. Defense, you have everything. Do you have any questions? Everything matches. Sign here, whatever, however that happens. We're good to go. You have what we have. Right. I mean, that doesn't even happen out the box. And I was with you, man. Once they were starting to like Dropbox, I'm like, what? Like, this is a murder trial. Like, this kid could literally go to the jail for the rest of his life. And you throw everything in Dropbox. You're like, oh, yeah, well, your file size just happens to be 3 times smaller than mine. And there's a huge difference. So I tell our listeners out there that, if you haven't seen it, go out there and look. And again, whether you think the evidence has anything to do with it and could sway a juror one way or another, that's not the point. The point is, the prosecution had that video, and it wasn't until after everything's done, said and over with, minus the verdict, that, oh yeah, defense, by the way, there's this HD video out here that you didn't get. Sorry about that. But it's because the 80s going for the win. And I would tell you that what was very disheartening to me, and this it actually made me angry. And I know we throw around a lot of stuff out there, but I think generally speaking, between all three of us and Luke, we're not really black helicopter guys. I mean, there's a couple things here and there that you're like, yeah, this just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I think in general that we're just not black helicopter guys. Watching I've got 2 points to make on this. Watching the prosecution, there are several instances where they just straight lied. I mean, just straight lied. And I tell you, this goes to my second point, that I see why we are so, divided in our country, because a lot of folks, we're fortunate enough that we have news. So I can watch this during the daytime, just like I think you are where you're at. So we get to watch a large portion of the trial to see what actually happened. And the majority of America doesn't get that. They don't have that luxury because they're working during the day, they're doing their 9 to 5 or whatever. So they get home, and like the majority of Americans, they'll either, catch a snippet off Facebook, or they'll see what CNN reported or what Fox News reported. And dude, they're all dirty. I mean, they're all crooked as hell. And I'll go back to my first point with the prosecution. There was a video, and I think it was Dropkick Guy. But the prosecution is showing the video, and they're doing frame by frame, right? Now they're slowing everything down to make it look like, hey, this thing is 15 minutes long. Not the fact that all 3 rounds or 4 rounds were shot, within 0.76 seconds. But anyway, they're showing the guy, and he takes a step back in the next frame, and the prosecution stops and says, see right there, he's taking a step back. He is retreating. There was no reason to shoot him. He's retreating. You don't take a step back, unless you're retreating. You can't advance if you're taking a step back. So he makes a compelling argument, right? You're sitting there like, you look at it frame by frame. You're like, okay, taking a step back, whatever. And then, of course, later on, when the defense comes up, they continue that video. The guy was taking a step back so he could lunge forward. Dude, that is just straight misleading. Yep. And that's the difference between fighting for justice and fighting for the win. The ADA is going for the win. And I tell you that is it's misleading, and it's lying. You are presenting evidence to a jury that is not the truth, and it's not the truth. My whole point is go up there with, the prosecution. I get it. If you got to prosecute, there was a homicide, somebody died. You come forth, here's the evidence, and here's how it shakes out. And really, as the prosecution, it shouldn't really be about wins and losses. It should be about justice. And hey, if a jury of his peers convict him based on, the legal evidence that's at play, then that's the way it is. If they acquit him based on that same evidence, then that's just the way it is. But seeing that, watching the prosecution, play to win, they just straight lied. I mean, you've pretty much violated this guy's constitutional rights twice, right? Questioning the right to remain silent, questioning, why did you need a lawyer? Do you get to really ask me that? Well, I guess a fourth time. So you got the video with the discovery, and then just straight out lying. And I tell you, that's what really, you talk about breaking spirit, man. That's what really broke my spirit. I was like, wow. I mean, this is a government employee. This is the ADA that is straight misleading the jury, and it should be illegal, and he should be punished for it, and then going,
He should be disbarred.
Because that is egregious. And I tell you, going a step farther. So, and this is where I hold the media or should hold the media accountable for all this. So again, watching a lot of the testimony, and I forget all the names and this and that, but the guy, he was going through some cross-examination, this and that, back and forth, and taking them step by step, and it was the guy with the Glock. So he's like, they're asking him questions, and he's basically, when I first saw him, I had my hands up. I wasn't charging him. I had my hands up. Then, there's some lines of questioning in there, and then I reached down for my Glock, and then I pointed my Glock at him, and then I charged at him. Okay. So I heard that whole testimony that night, and I didn't do this on purpose. I just happened to be flipping through channels. CNN popped up, and the only portion they played on CNN was I had my hands up and didn't charge Kyle.
Yep.
Okay. And this is how they're leading to the, to what's going on in this country as far as, being divided. Had you not sat there and actually watched or heard the trial yourself, that's what you're going off of. That's all that you know. And it's impossible with all the cases out there and everything going on and all the news and this, it's impossible to sit down there and try to watch and read everything. So when you go back, and if you're one of those individuals that don't have the luxury to be able to hear this testimony, that's all that you have to go off of. You can't possibly do the due diligence on everything. That's what you hear. And so they're already skewing what your perception of the case is, and then the outcome, right? So now they throw that piece of news out there. Let's say he's acquitted. And at this point, we have no idea. But let's say he's acquitted, and that's the piece of news that I've heard. Then that's what I have to go off of. And I sit here, I'm like, well, this isn't fair. This guy had his hands up and he got shot and this and that. I mean, they are, and the right does it just as well. Okay. So I'm blasting out CNN because that's what I happen to hear, but it's no different. The left and right do it. And I tell you, there's a point to where, hey, they should be held accountable for that. Just like, what was the guy? Sandoval, what was his name? The guy with the,
You're talking about the kid at the Lincoln Memorial?
Yeah.
Nick Salmon.
So, apparently, I think I saw on Twitter or something like that he was telling Rittenhouse that he should sue the media.
100%.
And they all should, because I tell you, whatever happens in Kenosha with however this thing shakes out, they are just as much to blame for what happens.
100%. 100%. Prosecutors, when prosecutors walk into a courtroom, they should be going for two things. One, fairness, and two, seeking the truth. Like you said, that's what the prosecution should be doing. Like, we want to make sure that we're fair, and we want to make sure that, what we seek is the truth. And then, the cards fall where they may, with the jury, or, if it's not a jury trial, with a judge, or however it's structured. But you can't do that. Like you said, they're going in for the win. And I believe they got bullied into this. They got bullied into the courtroom by the media, by the left. You even had Joe Biden as a as a presidential candidate come out and comment on, the guilt and innocence of this 17-year-old kid before the trial.
He called him a white supremacist.
And he called him a white supremacist. I would sue Joe Biden if I was Kyle Rittenhouse. I'd sue Joe Biden too. It just, all of it is absolutely insane. And, and so Lunchbox today, he was talking about, and he was like, well, I don't think a mistrial is justified because of, a technicality. And that, again, this is the government. This is the United States government and the state of Wisconsin talking. This is literally the people who have the power to come and arrest you and pull you out of your house right now, talking about, well, we shouldn't declare a mistrial just because of a technicality. I'm telling you right now, I don't care who you are. I don't care. Even, dude, you could be guilty of sin. If the trial was not fair, if there were shenanigans, if there was prosecutorial malfeasance, you should be free to walk out of that courtroom. And that's just the way it should be. I would rather guilty people go free than to send innocent people to jail, because we don't want to upset the rage mob, and two, because, well, it was a minor technicality, so it's not a big deal. Like, to me, that's absolutely, I would rather guilty people go free, than, because, and you're, and people are like, well, the justice system isn't fair. Well, no, it's, there are certain injustices in the justice system, right? And there are imperfections in the justice system. My response to that would be, show me a justice system in the world that is more fair than ours. Go show me that, because I don't know of one. And I'll use the state of Texas as an example. I sat in a trial in Fort Worth, of an individual military member who was, he was accused of a pretty serious crime. I mean, it was a felony. And once the jury, they got presented the evidence, witnesses testified, everything. Once the jury came back and said, we find the defendant guilty as charged, the judge laid out the minimum and the maximum for the crime of which they found him guilty, and then sent the jurors back to come up with his sentence. It was up to those 12 jurors to come back and say, we found you guilty and we are deciding your sentence. There was no, the prosecution didn't get to say, this is what, you're sentenced to. The judge didn't get to say, this is what I sentenced you to. It was a jury of your peers decided your fate, right? Not only are your guilt or innocence, but they also decided, once they found you guilty, they decided your punishment. And I think that is probably one of the most purest forms, that you can do. I even like the fact, a bunch of people kind of poo-pooed on it, but I even like the fact, they had 18 jurors in this trial. 12 were going to, be chosen at the end. That way you got 6 alternates, and, nobody's going to know exactly who's going to be, on that panel of 12. And, they had that little tumbler there, like they used to do the lottery ping pong balls.
Yep.
And dude, they had Kyle Rittenhouse pull the numbers out. I thought that was cool. I thought that was, hey man, no one can come back and say, well, those jurors were, they were picked for a reason. There was some shenanigans in that. No, man, like, he picked them out. And I think that, is the justice system perfect? No, but I don't know of one that is, and I damn sure don't know of one that's better than ours. Now you've got, I don't know if you saw it, and this is a little tangent, but this Oklahoma case with Julius Jones on death row.
Yep.
Right. Yep. The guy, everybody's screaming racism now because he's sentenced to be put to death Thursday at 1600 Oklahoma time, and everybody's like, oh, it's racist, because he's black and blah blah. It's like, well, I don't know about the trial. I don't know whether the dude's, I didn't watch it. I didn't follow it. I didn't even know about it until Kim Kardashian, is all over social media, talking about how immoral it is that he's going to be put to death. But there was a dude that got carjacked and got killed in front of his 2 daughters, and the murder weapon was found in your house, in your attic, wrapped up in a bandana that had your DNA on it. And, he's like, well, I'm innocent. Well, I don't know what to tell you, man. That when it comes to that, hey, is the justice system perfect? No, but at the end of the day, you can claim you're innocent all you want to, but in situations like that, but the left has wanted to tear down the justice system for a very, very long time. And right now they're getting what they wanted because if you believe some of the things you've seen on social media, and these people have reported reliably in the past, and they're very well connected, saying there's one or two jurors that don't want to acquit Kyle Rittenhouse because they're afraid they're going to get doxxed. They're afraid that, they're going to be put out there and something bad's going to happen to them. And if we're to that point, man, I mean, that's just old school mob stuff, that's just old school mob, man. I'm going to go intimidate some jurors and, threaten their family so they give me the verdict I want. If we are allowing that and the media is enabling that, as you pointed out, then, then we should just go back. We should abolish the justice system, and we should go back to old school vigilante justice, and everybody wears a pistol on their hip. And, well, at that point, we probably would have a little bit more, a more polite society by and large.
A lot less shit talking.
It'd be a lot less shit talking, man. You called somebody a coward or yellow, back in the day, dude, you were going out in the street and somebody wasn't coming back in through those swinging doors. So, I don't know if he's going to be acquitted or not. I don't have a lot of faith in the justice system right now. I don't have a lot of faith in citizens by and large. Because if you're on a jury and you're, well, I'm going to convict somebody. I'm not going to find somebody innocent because I'm scared, because I'm worried about my safety. Well, then, dude, there's 6 alternates. You should raise your hand and say, I can't do this. And you failed at your civic duty, and you should probably pack your bags and, go to China, go to Cuba, go somewhere where, all that's taken care of for you and you don't have to worry about it. So regardless of what happens, I think Kenosha is going to burn. Even if they come back with lesser charges, it's going to be, oh, well, it wasn't what they charged him with. And, it's because he's white. It's because of this. It's because of that. So they're going to burn. BLM and Antifa, they're going to find a reason to, go out and destroy things and have a mostly peaceful protest. Anyway, Christmas is coming up. They've got to clear out, those Christmas lists. And, nothing says justice like burning down, stores and stealing 100 pair of Jordans. So,
and a lot of it's going to be the media's fault. They are really gaslighting this stuff.
Yep.
And I see it with the talking points, because a lot of the talking points aren't even brought up in the trial because it's not a legal matter. It's like, well, what were you doing in Kenosha? I was doing in Kenosha. None of your fucking business what I'm doing in Kenosha. Right? I have a right to be in Kenosha. And then, of course, hey, oh, by the way, his dad lives there. Of course, that was never brought up. Well, he drove 21 miles. And is that against the law that I can't drive 21 miles? I mean, that's the thing, is the media starts to push out these narratives because they're expecting an acquittal. Whether that happens or not, it remains to be seen. But it just in case, right? You got to hedge your bets. So they're all going to be out there protesting and rioting and burning shit down based off some false narratives that the media's put out. I mean, the same thing they were accusing Donald Trump of doing, President Biden just did. The guy just called him a white supremacist. Like, hey, am I going to get a fair trial for this? And oh, by the way, they didn't even sequester the jury. So they've been going home every night. And so I think at the end of the day, that's what it's going to come down to, is whether he's found guilty or acquitted. I think there's so much there already, and I think the judges conceded that there's already so much there that's going to go forward on appeal that he'll probably win. And my 0 hours of law, there's enough there, I think, from what I've seen and what I've heard, that this thing gets appealed if he's found guilty and is probably acquitted at that level.
Yeah, it just comes down to it. If you're going to find him guilty, then okay, fine, but find him guilty based on the facts.
Right.
Don't find him guilty because, well, I don't want to get doxxed, or, I don't want to, cause a bunch of hoopla, or, I don't. You've had these juries, and it happened on the Scott Lacey Peterson case. they had this one juror who was a holdout. It was like, I'm not sure, right? Because again, people are like, well, I've heard some people say, well, you got to be 100% sure. It's like, there's this thing called reasonable doubt. Is there a reasonable doubt that a reasonable person could have that this person may not have done this? If so, if there is reasonable doubt, then you find them innocent. And this one juror, was like, I'm not, man, I'm just, I'm not persuaded. Like I have not, no one has persuaded me that this guy did this, based on the evidence and the testimony and, all that stuff. And literally the jury berated him so much that he finally was just like, fine, okay, I just want to go home. And here you go. And you're like, dude, no, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Like that right there is, and those people should automatically be like, you're off the jury. We're going to bring in an alternate. Like you just if you're going to find him guilty based on the facts, not not anything else. So I don't know, man. It's Kenosha's going to burn regardless. People are going to be upset regardless. People are already starting to shift their focus to the Julius Jones case in Oklahoma. One thing people haven't talked a lot about, and I may have seen it here and there, is the Ahmad Aubrey case going on right now in Georgia. I think the defense just put first people on the stand today.
Yeah, they Fox News was playing it, and I got to hear a little bit of that testimony, and he was explaining, kind of what was going on at the time, and the cops. I caught probably about a good hour of it or whatever, and it is totally, it's funny when you look at how Wisconsin is, and then Georgia, the environment's just totally different. It's very lax down there. It is, it's almost like, wow, are we really in a courtroom here? You're just kind of chilling, telling stories, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I think with as we were all texting back and forth, I hope justice is served, especially in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. From what I've seen, he should be acquitted. But I tell you what, man, I was not impressed with his defense attorney's closing arguments. I mean,
that
was horrible.
It was terrible.
He was unpolished. I don't know how many times he stopped to, he drank his entire bottle of water. Then they had, they gave the guy Gatorade. Did you catch that? Like, bro, like you need to like spunk up a little bit, gave him a Gatorade.
Here's some electrolytes.
So hopefully that works itself out. But the Rittenhouse isn't the biggest thing on the news. That's probably what's dominated the news. And I know we're not going to have a full 2-hour episode here, but I think a win. You look at the OSHA mandated vaccine, right? Or I guess it was one of the mandates. Was put on hold by the Sixth Circuit Court.
I think it was it was either the Sixth or the Fifth Circuit, one of those two.
So
yeah,
basically, they're talking about companies with 100 people, more than 100 people, you have to have vaccine. But we can talk about that once we get all three of us. What was interesting with this piece, and I wrote this down specifically because this is how scary it gets. The government says that those who work from home are exempt from mandates like wearing masks. So I work from home. So the government's saying that I'm exempt from those mandates like wearing masks at home, which, okay, period. But then I carry that on. I'm like, wait a minute. If they're telling me that I'm exempt, that means that they think they have the authority to tell me to wear a mask in my home. Right. I mean, the only reason you spell that out is if you already have or they believe they have the authority to tell you to do that stuff.
Yep.
Dude, it is crazy.
They think they do. They 100% think they do. They think they have that authority. Before the election, you heard Joe Biden before the election when he was asked on vaccine mandates. No, I don't believe in mandates. That's not the path we want to take. I don't believe in them. I don't, he even questioned their legality. And one of the first things he did was what? Nope, we're going to have a vaccine mandate.
And it's carried on beyond that because I just got back from Vegas and this all comes from COVID. Right? This is why I think the three of us, why we fight so hard. Even my kids, my son's, I think he's finally starting to get it. Like, Dad, why do you fight back about everything? It's like, you have to. Like, if you give an inch, they will take a yard. Like, you have to fight. everything. Because so we're in Vegas, we're staying at a hotel off the strip, and we opted for no maid service, and we were with a couple friends, so we had 3 hotel rooms. They started doing wellness checks if you don't have maid service. So they basically come in your room, unwelcomed, do not ask permission, to look around your room to make sure that I don't know if you're storing like dead hookers or drugs or guns or whatever it is. But I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, what gives you the authority? I mean, unfortunately for us, again, I wasn't even in the room. So when they came in, they did whatever in the heck they did. But, I'm just thinking, as we were talking to our friends about it, I wouldn't have let him in the room. Like, what authority do you have to come here? That is my residence at that time, right? Basically, I'm a renter. I'm renting this room. I'm renting this property. Like, you have no authority to come in here without my permission, unless I've committed a crime. But you have a hotel with thousands of people staying there. That's just what. It's fine.
Because people have gotten comfortable with allowing the government to tell them what they can and can't do. I mean, last year was, that was just a highlight when, you had, hey, here's a hotline, call us if your neighbor leaves their house.
Right.
People were like, oh yeah, and it was, remember when the dude who was out paddleboarding by himself in the ocean got arrested, right?
It's California.
Because and you're like, the dude's literally by himself. Like, you guys actually violated your own social distancing order to arrest him. Like, there was nobody around him. He wasn't doing it. He wasn't hurting anybody. He wasn't hurting anything. And then people were like, and people champion that. People literally champion that. I saw from a blue check mark account. I can't remember which one it was. I meant to screenshot it. I completely forgot. In the Twitter sphere, they're like, I can't believe this judge, and talking about the judge in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, I can't believe this judge is so letter of the law. And you're like,
wow,
that's exactly what the judge should be. What every judge should be. Every judge should be the letter of the law. And they were upset. And so, because it was about the rifle, right? So it was about the rifle. And the prosecution was arguing, because when the judge said he was dismissing the weapons charge, and the defense was like, well, the statute is poorly written, and it says, and so it means you got to be in the way it's interpreted, we interpret it, you got to be in violation of both, clauses, or what, however they word it. And he's not in violation of one, so he can't be in violation of the clause, blah, blah, blah. And then they were talking about, well, the prosecution's like, well, we don't know that weapon was not under 16 inches. And the judge is like, well, you guys didn't measure it. And they're like, well, the defense didn't measure it, for the jury. And the judge had to remind these 2 district attorneys that the burden of proof is on the state. It wasn't, if you were worried about the length of the rifle, you should have measured it. Right. Before or after you pointed it at the jury with your finger on the trigger, Mr. ADA. And so, but it was just like, but you got all these people out there who, they have become so comfortable. So it was kind of like, like I said this morning, like, so I just stopped for gas, and I left my car running while I pumped my gas. Right. And this lady behind me, she completely lost her mind. She was like, you're going to blow up the gas station, you're going to kill everybody, blah, blah. Like, she called the attendant, and the attendant at the gas station, he's an old dude. Like, so he comes over there and he was like, all right, what's the problem? And I'm still pumping my gas. And I was like, I don't know. She's upset with me because I left my car running while I'm pumping gas. And he's an old dude, right? So he's like, oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, you can leave it running. Like, I mean, he's like, I used to leave mine running when I pump my gas. Like, it's not, you show me, show me the empirical data and the thousands and thousands of cases of cars exploding at gas stations because somebody left their engine running while they pump their gas. There's not, because it doesn't happen.
No, you're wrong. It happens every day. I don't know how anybody's left. I mean, everybody should be dead.
Right.
between COVID and you pumping gas and leaving your car running, we should all be dead.
Yeah. And it's just, but people have gotten comfortable with the government telling them what they can and can't do. dude, it is absolutely insane. And I hate to compare it. I hate comparing anything to the Holocaust, because I don't want it to ever diminish or minimize what the Holocaust was and what the Nazis did. But when it comes down to it, man, and you go, how did 6 million people?
Mhm.
How did 6 million people get murdered before somebody was like, you know what? Check it out. You may you may kill me, but it won't be on that train, and it damn sure won't be in a shower or an oven. Like, you're gonna kill me right here because I'm not getting on the train. I just And then last year it was, well, that's exactly how we got there. Like, that is exactly how we got there. People are okay. I don't know if you saw the video, the what's going on in Austria right now, dude. Austria, man, police are walking around, going into stores, checking people's COVID
Oh
paperwork.
yeah.
They got roadblocks set up, and dude. And granted, the Austrians are kind of used to it, just simply being, being where they are. They're just kind of like, yeah, this is just it. But there's people, again, on social media are like, we should have that here in the States. Like, they should be doing that here in the U.S. And you're just like, you have no effing clue what you're asking for. Like, you don't know what you're talking. You have no clue where that goes. And people just think they're
Well,
ignorant,
you're right. I
man.
mean, this is the
They're
stepping
ignorant.
stone. This is this, because I've done the same thing. We sat here and we all talk about. It's like, man, how does, like, when you look at like World War II and the Holocaust, it's like, how does that even happen? Like, how does that not stop? This is exactly how that happens. This is the stepping stone to getting there, and it's, man, I tell you, it's frustrating. And it goes back to, you know, once we get into our Bill of Rights episodes. I mean, I think it's going to be educational for a lot of folks. It's like, hey, this, my rights are not there for the government to give me. I have those rights. These rules and regulations are for the government and their restraints, what they can and can't do. But not everybody sees it that way. And so many people are so ready to give up their rights. They want to be told what to do. And when you look at the history of warfare and enslaved people and this and that, I mean, this is how this stuff happens. It's like
Yeah.
lemons just falling off a cliff. So since we're so good with predictions, a la Virginia, because I think we were all wrong on McAuliffe and Youngkin. So,
we
so
were.
what's your
We
final
were. I was.
thoughts on Kyle Rittenhouse, and where's your money lie with the verdict?
I think they come back guilty with lesser charges. I really do. And a lot of that just it lays on it just speaks back to my lack of faith in my fellow Americans. It really does. So I think guilty, lesser charges. So they've asked again. They're going back. The jury is asked to see the video again, the drone footage. Um, you know, when that didn't come back, when they was like, all right, they broke, so the jury could go deliberate on Monday or what was it, Tuesday? When dude, when they didn't come back within like 2-3 hours, I was it's like bad. The longer it goes, I think the worse it's going to be, and especially if they're it depends. Well, I guess so. I'll rewind some of that. So I guess it depends on how they are looking at it. Are they going count by count? Charge by charge to say, okay, this one, nope, not guilty on this one. All right, not guilty on that
So
one.
it's
Or
conflicting guidance. So, because I sat there, I actually watched when they were deliberating back and forth with the prosecution, defense, and the judge, and the judge verbally said, "Hey, once they deem self-defense, ball game." I think he actually
yeah,
used the term ball game, but the written instructions, and I didn't read them. I'm going off what he was stating at the time. Was you look at charge one, the most severe charge. If you find him not guilty, then you go to charge two. You find not guilty, charge two, you go to charge three, and you keep on working down the charges, right? Most severe, least severe,
yeah,
uh, which again kind of goes against the, well, if you find him not guilty on charge one because of self-defense, that applies to all of them. So what he
all of them. Yep.
said versus going back and drawing it out, I believe the jury instructions, just based off of what I saw in the trial, is they're going to go through line by line each individual charge. And so what I'm hoping is, at least based off what I've seen, is maybe that's why it's taken so long, because they are having to go through each charge and weigh each and every charge.
Yeah. Yeah. Which means regardless, they did. Let's just say they have it, because I would assume they've already at least worked through charge one. They are not unanimous that it was self defense, because that would have probably been the first thing, I would have brought up. All right, charge one. Hey, does anybody agree to self defense? All right, if everybody agrees with self defense, all right, hey, we reached a verdict. We're done. Um, so that means that was definitely not unanimous.
Yeah,
Because they would
or
have come
the
back.
verbal guidance that he gave that self-defense's ball game never actually made it to the jury in the instructions, which is what I have a gut feeling that's how that went down. So
Yeah, that may have maybe the case as well. I know the trial I sat in, the judge actually sat the jury, like everybody was in the courtroom, and the judge read the entire instructions to he read all the instructions to the jury, and he gave a little bit of verbal guidance, but it was just what was in the written instructions, and he specifically stated, he was like, there is nothing, you are not to consider anything that's been said in here in your instructions, only what's on this piece of paper.
right.
So maybe this judge didn't clarify that, or didn't get to there or whatever. So I don't
Well, I'm
know.
gonna go out on a
We'll
limb. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm just gonna agree with you and say they come back guilty uh, on a lesser charge, for a variety of reasons. And my final thought to our listeners and viewers out there: if you get a chance to actually go back and listen or watch the trial, like especially when the prosecution's up there and the defense, and they're questioning witnesses and stuff, listen to it, because I would tell you, and I don't care what your news source is, whether it's Fox News or CNN. Or MSNBC or any other news source, I guarantee you what you hear there is going to be probably 180 different from any other news source that you've heard from, because it's it's been extremely disheartening for me, like I said, this process, and to see it play out this way. So I definitely encourage our listeners and viewers out there to go back and try to find some game tape of this stuff. So with that being said, I know it's a shorter episode. Hopefully next time we'll have we'll have Luke on board, and then we'll see if we're right with our predictions or not. You have one more thing?
I got one last thing to say. Talking about the traveling. They're like, oh, he traveled to 21 miles across state line, blah blah. It's like, okay, I have a 38-mile one way commute to work. At least for a little while longer. And number two, I'm really glad to see the left actually recognize that borders, imaginary lines on a map, exist.
All the more reason for a wall around every single state. So with that being said, that's going to do it for another episode of Culper's Canteen Cup. Thanks again, Carlton Zeus, Apple Music, www.carltonzeus.com. And for our listeners and viewers out there, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep your canteen cups tightly secured.